Hey there! Thank you for watching my channel. Today I want to show you a new stitch, and this one is the lotus stitch. And you can see the lotus flowers over here. They are diagonal from each other. So the whole pattern is just lotus stitches. And there is no right or wrong side. So the back and the front is just the same. And you can see it's a little bit thicker. It's a thicker pattern. And it's nice and warm. It's great for a blanket or a scarf or, well, maybe even a coat. So I'm just going to show you how you can crochet this stitch. I've got my yarn, I've got a thinner yarn, and I've got a crochet hook of 4 millimeters. And first we are making a slip knot. And then we need to make a multiples of 6 plus 5. So first chain a multiple of 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I suggest to make the chains loose. And if you are crocheting tighter, then just go up one crochet hook, because you need to make bulky stitches, so it might just go warping up like this. So try to make your base chain loose. So I did my first 6 stitches, and now I'm gonna make more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm gonna stop over here. So I made 3 times the multiples of 6 chains, and now we're gonna add 5 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for row 1, skip the first chain, and in the next one make a single crochet, and then skip 2 stitches, and in the next we're gonna make a lotus stitch, and it goes like this. First you're making a puff stitch, so yarn over, in that stitch drop a loop, yarn over, in that same stitch drop a loop, yarn over, and in that same stitch drop a loop. Now we have 7 loops on our hook, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So for now, yarn over and pull through the first 6 loops on your hook, and leave the other one. Now you have 2 loops on our hook, so yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops on your hook. Now chain 2, and in that same stitch you're gonna make another puff stitch. So yarn over, drop a loop in that stitch, yarn over, in that stitch drop a loop, yarn over, in that same stitch drop a loop. 7 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 6 loops on your hook, leave the other one. Now with 2 loops, so yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops on your hook, chain 2 again, and for the last time in that same stitch we're gonna make a puff stitch. So yarn over, in that stitch drop a loop, yarn over, in that same stitch drop a loop, yarn over, in that same stitch drop a loop. 7 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 6, yarn over, pull through the last 2. And now do not chain 2, because we are done with the lotus stitch, and it looks like this now. So in one stitch we have a puff stitch, chain 2, puff stitch, chain 2, puff stitch, and that's called a lotus stitch. Okay, so now skip 2 chains, and in the next one make a single crochet. Skip 2 chains, and the next one make a lotus stitch. So yarn over, in that stitch drop a loop, yarn over, in that same stitch drop a loop. And you can see I put my finger on my loop so it will be nice and even. And if I want to do it like this, then I find it harder to crochet, so I always put my finger on my loops on my hook. So one more time, we have 7 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through the first 6, yarn over, pull through the last 2, chain 2, and make another puff stitch. So yarn over, in a stitch, drop a loop, yarn over, in that stitch, drop a loop, yarn over, in that stitch, drop a loop. 7 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 6, yarn over, pull through the last 2, chain 2, and then one more time a puff stitch. So yarn over, drop a loop, yarn over, in that same stitch, drop a loop, yarn over, in that same stitch, drop a loop. 7 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 6, yarn over, pull through the last 2, and there is your next lotus stitch. Just continue this for the rest of your row until you are having 3 stitches left. So skip 2 stitches, in the next one make a single crochet, skip 2 stitches, in the next one make a lotus stitch, just one more puff stitch in that same stitch. And you can see why I said you need to make your base chain loosely, because you can see it just pulls a little bit when you are making the lotus stitch. So okay, so skip 2 stitches, in the next one make a single crochet. You always need to end with a single crochet before you are having 3 stitches left. So when you have 3 stitches left, the stitch before that always needs to be a single crochet. Okay, so for now skip 2 stitches, and now we need to make a half lotus stitch. That means we are going to make a puff stitch in the last stitch, and then chain 2, and then in that same stitch, the last stitch, make one more puff stitch, and then that's that. So no more chaining 2 or one more puff stitch, so just one puff stitch, chain 2, one puff stitch, and that's called a half lotus stitch. And there it is for row 1. And now for row 2, chain 1, turn your work. The chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so in that first stitch make a single crochet, and maybe it's convenient to take a stitch marker and put it in that first stitch over here in your single crochet, so it will be better to find when you need to make your row 3 that this is your last stitch. I'll show you when we are done with row 2 and we are going to do row 3. So you don't have to do this, but it may be convenient to do it if you are finding it hard sometimes to find the right stitches you need to crochet in. Okay, so we're gonna skip that half lotus stitch from the previous row, and then we're going to go to the single crochet over here. So it's not this part over here, this stitch, but this is the single crochet from the previous row. In that stitch we're gonna make the lotus stitch. So first make one puff stitch, and then chain 2, and in that same stitch make one more puff stitch, so 7 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 6, yarn over, pull through the last 2, chain 2, and then again one more puff stitch. So yarn over, in that same stitch drop a loop, yarn over, that same stitch drop a loop, yarn over, in that same stitch drop a loop. 7 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 6, yarn over, pull through the last 2. So you can see that the puff stitch is going to sit between the puff stitches of the first row, the lotus stitches of the first row. So now we have the first lotus stitch over here. So we have 1, 2, 3 puff stitches, and in the middle one, in the second one, we're gonna make a single crochet. So just go like this, and then you can see that here is your stitch you need to be. So in that stitch, make a single crochet. And now let's go over to the next single crochet of row 1. Here is that single crochet. So you can see this is the stitch that belongs to this puff stitch, and that means that this is a single crochet. So in that stitch, make the lotus stitch. So that means a puff stitch, chain 2, in that same stitch make another puff stitch, chain 2, and I need to grab some more yarn. You can see this pattern calls for more yarn than maybe any regular pattern with just chains and single crochets and double crochets. So keep that in mind when you want to make this pattern. So one more puff stitch and then the lotus stitch is done. And now we have the next lotus stitch from row 1, and in that center over here, in that second puff stitch, make your single crochet. And then let's go to the next single crochet of row 1 and make a lotus stitch. Chain 2. Chain 2, and one more puff stitch to finish the lotus stitch. There it is. So I have one more lotus stitch from row 1. So in that center, in the second lotus, in the second puff stitch, I need to make my single crochet, and just make sure you grab both loops of that stitch. And now we are at the end. You can see that this is your puff stitches, and this is your last stitch over here. This is your single crochet from the row 1. And now we're going to make a half lotus stitch. So in that last stitch, make one puff stitch, chain 2, and in that same stitch make one more puff stitch. Like that. Now I'll show you one more time, because row 2 is all you need to repeat for this pattern. Chain 1 to turn your work, and then make a single crochet in that first stitch, and you can place a stitch marker if you want to in this stitch. And then we need to go over to the next single crochet of the previous row over here. So you are leaving these stitches here and go to that chain, that single crochet, and you can see that is on top of the center of your lotus stitch. So make a lotus stitch, chain 2, and again one more puff stitch. I'm sorry for the ticking noise of that stitch marker. Okay, so one more puff stitch in that same stitch, and then your lotus is finished, and you can see that they are on top of each other. So here's your row 1, your row 2, and row 3. So row 3 sits nicely on row 1, so your puff stitches are here and here. Okay, so now for the next we are gonna make a single crochet in that second puff stitch of your previous row. And then we're going to go to the next single crochet of row 2. You can see it's on top of that center of your row 1 lotus stitch. So in here we're going to make a lotus stitch. I'm going to speed it up a little because it's just the same with every row. So I made 3 puff stitches with chain 2s in between, then make a single crochet in that center of your lotus stitch of row 2, and then here we have our next single crochet, then make a lotus stitch in that single crochet stitch, chain 2, need to grab some more yarn. So one more puff stitch, chain 2, and then the last puff stitch to finish this lotus stitch. And then I have my last lotus stitch from the previous row, so in the top of that make a single crochet. And now I'm at the end, so you can see right now that I'm having the stitch mark over here, so you can find that last stitch easier. And you can see that it's just going a little bit diagonal, so maybe it will be hard to find when you don't have a stitch marker and you make this stitch for the first time with this pattern. So in that last stitch over here, make the half lotus stitch, so yarn over in that stitch, drop a loop, yarn over in that same stitch, drop a loop, yarn over in that same stitch, drop a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 6 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. I'm going to remove this stitch marker because it's in the way when I'm crocheting. And you can see it's not that nice, so I'm gonna do it again. So in that last stitch make a puff stitch like I said, but I'm gonna make it better. So bear with me. Okay, so 1 puff stitch in that last stitch, chain 2, and then make 1 more puff stitch in that last stitch. And then you made your half lotus stitch. And now you can see that the edges are straighter than you saw when I needed to make the half lotus stitch. So this is all there is to it. Just repeat row 2 like I did. And then just chain 1, make a single crochet in that first stitch. And then in that single crochet of the previous row, make a lotus stitch. Single crochet on the top of the next lotus stitch in the single crochet, make a single crochet in the top of the lotus stitch, etc. And then in the last stitch make your half lotus stitch. So just continue that row until your work is done, and then you crochet the lotus pattern or the lotus stitch. And I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me them. And well, I just want to wish you happy crocheting, and just subscribe to my channel if you don't already did that, and put on the notifications and you get a message when I uploaded a new video. And if you want to help me make my channel better, there are 2 links in the description below to make a donation for channel development. And well, just have a great day with lots of crocheting, and hope to see you soon. Bye bye.